6 months. Thomas had spent 6 months hunting lighthouses. 6 months destroying the ancient hearts that slept beneath them. 6 months racing against his own transformation. He'd destroyed 17 of them. 17 explosions. 17 battles with creatures from the deep. 17 close calls with death, and with each heart destroyed, his transformation had slowed. His skin had regained some color. His eyes had lightened. The frost that formed when he breathed had lessened, but it hadn't stopped, not completely. Because there were still 6 lighthouses left. 6 hearts still beating beneath the waves. And Thomas was running out of time. He stood on the coast of Maine looking out at the last lighthouse on his list. Point Gideon Station. Older than Sentinel Rock. More isolated. And according to the mysterious letters he'd been receiving, the most dangerous. This was where it had started. The first lighthouse built on a thin place. The first keeper transformed. The oldest heart. If Thomas could destroy this one, maybe the curse would finally break. His hands shook as he loaded explosives into a waterproof bag. The transformation was getting worse again. His fingers were too long now, bending at angles that weren't natural. His reflection in the water showed eyes that were more black than white. And the voices had started again. The creatures knew where he was. They'd been tracking him for months, getting smarter, more organized. At the last lighthouse, they'd almost killed him. He'd barely escaped with his life. This time, they'd be ready. This time, they'd make sure he didn't leave alive. Thomas didn't care. He'd lost everything 6 months ago. His family was dead. His humanity was slipping away. If destroying Point Gideon killed him, at least he'd die as himself. Not as one of those things. He took a small motorboat out to the lighthouse, moving through fog so thick he could barely see 10 feet ahead. The beam from Point Gideon cut through the mist, rotating slowly, hypnotic. As Thomas approached, he saw them. Creatures. Dozens of them, clinging to the lighthouse walls. Waiting. But there was something else. Standing on the rocks at the base of the lighthouse was a man. Tall, pale, dressed in an old keeper's uniform. Thomas recognized him from the photographs he'd found months ago. Edmund Price. The first keeper of Sentinel Rock, except Edmund had been trapped in the heart when Thomas destroyed it. He should be dead. Thomas tied off the boat and climbed onto the rocks. Edmund watched him approach, his expression unreadable. "You survived?" Thomas said. "Barely. When you destroyed the heart at Sentinel Rock, you freed some of us, the ones who'd been trapped the longest. But the transformation can't be reversed. We're stuck like this. Neither human nor creature. Something in between. Why are you here? To help you finish this? To end what we started 100 years ago." Edmund gestured toward the lighthouse. Point Gideon is different from the others. It's not just a heart beneath this lighthouse. It's the mother, the source that spawned all the others. Destroy it and you destroy the curse completely. Every lighthouse, every heart, every creature, and the keepers who've transformed. Edmund's expression darkened. We die, all of us. The transformation is tied to the mother heart. Kill it and everyone connected to it dies. Including you, including me, and including you eventually. You're more transformed than you think, Thomas. Another few weeks, and you'll be too far gone. This is your only chance. Thomas looked at the lighthouse, at the creatures waiting, at Edmund who'd helped him without asking for anything in return. "I'm sorry," Thomas said. "Don't be. I've been waiting for this for 70 years. Death is better than this." Edmund handed Thomas a key. "The entrance to the chamber is different here, behind the fuel storage. This key opens it. Be fast. The creatures will try to stop you, and the mother heart is aware. It's been waiting for you." Thomas took the key. "Thank you. Good luck, Keeper. Finish what we couldn't." Edmund turned and walked into the water. Within seconds, he was gone, disappeared beneath the waves. Thomas climbed to the lighthouse entrance. The door was unlocked. Inside, the lighthouse was pristine, maintained, as if someone still lived here. But Thomas knew better. No human had lived here for decades. The lighthouse maintained itself. Or rather, the thing beneath it did. He found the fuel storage on the ground level. Behind the tanks was a door he'd almost missed. Ancient wood. Rusted hinges. The key fit perfectly. The stairs beyond were different from Sentinel Rock. These went down hundreds of feet, spiraling deep into the earth, into the bedrock beneath the ocean floor. The walls were covered in ice, but this ice was alive. It pulsed, moved. Like it was breathing, Thomas descended for what felt like hours. His transformed body handled the cold better now. The ice didn't hurt him anymore. That should have been comforting. Instead, it terrified him. The chamber at the bottom was massive, larger than any Thomas had seen, and in the center was the mother heart. It was enormous. 50 feet tall, maybe more. made of black stone and ancient ice, veined with frozen water that glowed with an unnatural light. And within it, Thomas could see faces, thousands of them, every keeper who'd ever transformed, every creature that had ever served the hearts, all trapped, all aware. The mother heart pulsed. And with each pulse, Thomas felt his own heart synchronize, felt his transformation accelerate, felt himself being pulled toward it. Finally, the voice said, not from outside, from inside his head. After all these months, after all the hearts you've destroyed, you've come to the source? Thomas forced himself to focus, to resist the pull. He set down his bag and began placing explosives around the chamber, more than he'd used at any other lighthouse, enough to bring down the entire structure. You can't win, Keeper. You're already one of us. The transformation is complete. You just haven't accepted it yet. Thomas looked at his hands. They were pale, translucent. He could see veins of ice beneath his skin. The voice was right. He was more creature than human now, but he was still Thomas Wade, still the man who'd lost his family and chosen to fight rather than give in, and he'd finish this, even if it killed him. He set the timer. 5 minutes. If you do this, you'll die. Everyone connected to the hearts will die. Thousands of transformed keepers. Is their death worth your revenge? Thomas thought about Edmund, about the faces trapped in the hearts, about the centuries of suffering. It's not revenge, Thomas said. It's mercy. He pressed the button. The countdown began. Thomas ran. Up the stairs. The mother heart screamed, the sound so loud it shook the entire chamber. Ice began to crack. The walls began to collapse. The creatures in the lighthouse above shrieked, knowing what was coming. Thomas burst through the door into the lighthouse. The creatures were there, blocking his path. But they weren't attacking. They were fleeing. Climbing through windows, abandoning the lighthouse. Even they knew the mother heart was about to die. Thomas ran for the door, for the rocks, for his boat. 2 minutes left. He reached the motorboat and started the engine. Pulled away from the lighthouse as fast as the motor would push him. 1 minute. The explosion when it came wasn't loud. It was a deep, bass note that resonated in his bones. The lighthouse trembled, cracked, and then imploded, collapsing inward as the ground beneath it gave way. The mother heart's final scream echoed across the ocean, a psychic wail of agony and rage that made Thomas's ears bleed, made his vision blur, and then suddenly silence. Thomas looked at his hands. The ice beneath his skin was melting, disappearing. His fingers shortened, returned to their normal length. His skin regained color. His eyes cleared. The transformation was reversing. He'd done it. Destroyed the mother heart. Broken the curse. Around him, the ocean churned as hundreds of creatures surfaced. But they weren't attacking. They were dying. Their bodies dissolving, returning to water and foam. The hearts that had sustained them were gone. Thomas watched until the last creature vanished beneath the waves. And then he was alone. Truly alone. On the ocean. Under the stars, with his humanity restored. 3 days later, a Coast Guard cutter picked him up. He told them he'd been sailing when his boat sank. They believed him. Had no reason not to. They took him back to shore, back to civilization, back to life. Thomas returned to the small apartment he'd rented 6 months ago. Ate his first real meal in half a year. Slept in an actual bed. And in the morning, when he looked in the mirror, he saw himself. Not the transformed creature he'd been becoming, just Thomas Wade, human, alive, he'd won. But that night, lying in bed, Thomas felt something strange. A pull, faint, distant. Like a voice calling from very far away, he sat up, went to the window, looked out at the ocean visible in the distance. And on the horizon he saw a light. Pulsing. Rhythmic. A lighthouse. One he hadn't destroyed. One that shouldn't exist. Thomas checked his map. Counted the lighthouses again. 17 destroyed before Point Gideon. 1 destroyed at Point Gideon, 18 total. But the letter had said 23. Which meant there were 5 left. 5 he didn't know about. 5 hearts still beating beneath the waves. And as Thomas stared at that distant light, he felt the pull getting stronger. Felt something in his chest answering. Felt his transformation beginning again, slower than before. Much slower, but inevitable. The curse wasn't broken, just weakened. The mother heart was destroyed, but the children survived, hidden, waiting, and they were calling to him. Thomas closed the curtains, turned away from the window. But he knew the truth. His war wasn't over. It was just beginning.